G'day legends. In this video, I'm going to share with you 10 plugins that are essential to my workflow. So these are plugins that I use 99% of the time. They end up in most of my mixes. And if I didn't have them, I'd be very sad about it. So here we go. Our first plugin is, of course, Melodyne. So love it or hate it, if you're doing audio production, tuning is one of those things that you will be doing a lot of. And Melodyne just sounds the best to me. I did a video a long time ago where we compared Flex Pitch and Melodyne. And Flex Pitch in Logic did not sound anywhere near as good as Melodyne. Now, I know there's probably a couple of other options out there, but to me, Melodyne has always sounded the best. For myself, I have Melodyne Studio, which means that I can jump between all of the vocals at once and compare harmonies and melody tracks all within the one instance of Melodyne here, so that I can easily tune and fix things. And that's so important to me because it's a massive time saver, as well as it makes it so easy to fine tune harmonies and get double tracks nice and tight together when you're tuning within Melodyne. And besides tuning vocals, Melodyne can be a massive lifesaver when it comes to tuning pitchy guitars, guitar bends that just don't quite make it, things like that. You can sort it out in Melodyne and it can really save the day. And another vocal related plugin that I just couldn't live without is iZotope's RX Mouth to Click. So this is part of the RX bundle, which is all about restoring audio and fixing issues within audio. And this does a really specific thing where it cleans up all those little clicky mouth sounds that are, all those little clicky sounds that your mouth make when you talk or when you sing. Some people make a lot of clicky mouth sounds. And once you start to hear them, you cannot unhear them. It really ruins a song for you. It becomes all you can hear. So this plugin here, although it doesn't look that fabulous, it's just a square with a couple of sliders, is an essential tool for fixing vocals with a lot of mouth clicky sounds, especially when you're working on soft, delicate music, a soft vocals, really airy, and you start to hear these clicking sounds. This thing saves the day. It is seriously so good. You just put it on settings kind of like I have here. This is pretty much my kind of go-to settings. Will pretty much eradicate any annoying mouth click sounds. Can't express how much I love this plugin. So another amazing vocal related plugin that I couldn't live without, coming in strong with these vocal plugins to start with, is VocAlign. So VocAlign basically allows you to tighten up your double tracks, harmonies, anything that you want to sync up with your lead vocal or whichever vocal you're trying to sync all of these vocals together with. It just locks the timing in nice and tight, really quick and easy, saves you from manually having to do it or using flex time or anything like that. It's just a really quick solution to tightening vocals up. So even in the latest version, you can match the pitch to the guide vocal as well. So if you have your lead vocal tuned and then you have your double tracks untuned, you can just select to match the pitch and it literally does that. It matches them up with the guide vocal, which is pretty amazing and such a massive time saver. So any production that has like heaps of vocals, stacks of vocals, and you need to make it sound tight because that stuff can get really loose and messy very quickly, this is an absolute time saver. So this plugin has saved me hours and hours and hours upon editing time, and that's what is really valuable to me. And of course, we have to have Stephen Slate's Trigger 2 on this list of essential plugins because I use this pretty much all the time. Whether it's completely replacing or just blending in samples, maybe even just using room samples to enhance the drum mix, this is an essential tool that I use all the time. And I've also made samples that work within Trigger 2. Trigger 2 comes with an instrument editor, which allows you to create your own samples. And that's exactly what I've done. I've created a massive sample pack library here for Trigger 2, which has a bunch of kicks, bunch of one-shots, bunch of snares, bunch of toms, just a whole ton of sounds to enhance your drum mixes, and I use these all the time in my mixes, and I know a bunch of you guys have been using them. It's been a really popular one on the website. So if you want to support this channel, grabbing a copy of the Spinlight Studios Trigger 2 Volume 1 sample pack is a great way of doing it. There will be a link below to where you can check that out. So next one on my list of essential plugins is FabFilter's Pro L2. So this is probably one of my favorite limiters for mastering, and I do jump between a couple, but this is the one that I land on most of the time. I find when you have a well-balanced mix, this gives you some really good results, especially with all the different styles to choose from here. Basically changes the way the limiter sounds. It gives you a slight tonal variance on your master. So it's really cool to have a couple options there to jump between and pick the best sound for your master. True peak limiting, oversampling, diva, good metering. You can listen to the delta. You can one-to-one gain match, so you can just listen to exactly what the limiter's doing without just hearing all the loudness it's adding. It's just a really solid limiter, and I do like the way that it sounds. Now, my next essential plugin is Gold Clip by Schwab Digital. So I've been using this a lot this year. So over the last sort of 6 to 12 months, this has pretty much replaced my clipper that I used to have on my master bus, which was K-Clip 3 from Kazrog. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with K-Clip 3. It's an amazing plugin and it's actually really affordable. I just find that I prefer the sound of Gold Clip, but this is a fairly expensive plugin. But it does have some nice options in here, which just sound really good. But overall, the design, the simplicity of it, and the way that it sounds is just a little bit more intuitive to me, and I prefer pulling this plugin up and using it as my go-to clipper for mastering. Awesome things like the box tone, which kind of gives you that rolled off top end to get rid of that sort of like overly digital high frequencies that you get sort of like above 20K, 17K above, you know, that sort of fizzy stuff. Gives you a couple of options for emulating a more analog sound, as well as a couple of different clipping options. And then the gold knob, which does sort of like an upward compression, and then Alchemy, which kind of calms some harsh frequencies. So packed with some really useful features that work really well in the mastering stage. And of course, we have to have Pro Q3 on this list because it's just an amazing EQ. Now, while I'm generally pretty happy to just pull up a stock EQ in Logic to do this stuff, now what those stock EQs don't have the ability to do is turn any band into dynamic, but also to be able to select where that band sits, whether it's on the side, whether it's on the left, whether it's down the middle. You can do all mid-side moves all within the one instance of Pro Q3, and it doesn't have to just be mid-side. Any band can be whatever you want it to be. For example, we can have a band here, and then we can make it a mid band, so it's only going to affect the middle of the mix. And then we can make a boost here and we can tell it to only affect the left side of the mix. And you can create as many bands as you want. You can make them dynamic as well. It pretty much just allows you to EQ to your heart's content and has all of the bells and whistles that you need. Now, is there anything special about the way Pro Q3 sounds? No, it has no sound about it at all. It's just the way that you can use it that makes it special. Now, another essential plugin. I had a really hard time deciding which reverb was kind of like my essential desert island sort of reverb, but I sort of landed upon Valhalla's Vintage Verb. I do use this a lot. It is pretty much one of my go-tos when I think of grabbing some reverb. Pretty much come here first. You've got 3 options to choose between: 1970s, which is like a dark reverb; 1980s, which is kind of a little bit more chorusy. It's a little cleaner than the 1970s, but it still has a rolled off sort of sound about it. And then the now, which is kind of a cleaner, more pristine sounding reverb. So between those 3 options and then all of the different modes and then all of the different presets and everything that you can change in here, you pretty much just have all the reverb you ever need within this plugin. And the decay time all the way up to 70 seconds, which why would you ever need that? But you can do it. So this reverb can pretty much do everything you need. And it's not like this is the only reverb I'll ever use, but if I had to say one was really essential, it would be this one. Now, this might seem a bit crazy, but I haven't actually got a compressor on this list of essentials. While there are a bunch of compressors I like to use, I don't feel like any of them are like essential to my workflow. I can kind of jump between different compressors and happily get a sound that I like. Whereas the tools that I've mentioned so far, they either do something really well or they cover a really wide spectrum of what I need to do, and that's why they're so valuable to me. Like Mouth to Click does one trick, but it is an awesome trick. And Valhalla Vintage Verb covers a wide spectrum of reverbs and sounds that can be achieved. That's why it's such an awesome plugin. So that's why the next essential plugin I'm going to talk about, number 9, is FabFilter's ProMB, so a multi-band compressor. Now, besides just being an awesome plugin in itself, so you can do multi-band compression, which you can use on your mix bus, on your masters. You can use it on any sound in your mix, like on vocals. If you have a vocal that's a little bit problematic, you can use it to clean up some frequencies that are jumping out too much. You can rein things in and get a much better sound. But it's so much more than that. ProMB can be a de-esser. So this one little band here can act as a de-esser, compressing the frequency range of our choice. So we can use this little slider to pick where the S's and T's and all the annoying sibilance is coming through, and it's going to react really quickly and duck that down and it's actually an amazing de-esser. And I end up using this a lot of the time for de-essing. It can also work to de-bleed drums, so particularly on your snare drum or on your toms, you can use this in a way where all the high frequencies get ducked down, and every time the snare hits, it jumps back up and lets that transient through, and then it ducks back down and all the cymbal bleed goes away with it. It's a really amazing tool, and I do have a video about multi-band compression where I really go into depth about all the cool tricks you can do with this plugin, and that's why I love it so much. It's such a handy Swiss Army knife of a plugin to have around. And lastly, number 10, this is a free plugin, although I think you probably have to have an iLock to be able to use it. This is Slate Digital's Revival, and this is a free plugin within VMR. And basically this is an exciter, so you can add thickness, it excites the low end, and you can also add shimmer, and it really does add a really nice shimmer to the high end of your sound. And especially on like a snare drum, it brings that little bit of air to the snare, which sounds so good on your kick drum as well. Even on the drum bus, adding that air to the cymbals. It's a really amazing tool on vocals, and it's free, and it sounds great. And I haven't heard an exciter that does exactly what this does. They also have their fresh air plugin. I think that's what it's called, but I always find it's a little too much. But what this does sounds really sweet. And compared to other exciters, this one just does that shimmery sound really well. So they really hit the nail on the head with this, and it's free, which is awesome. So it's definitely one of those plugins that's kind of like one trick, but it does it really good. So while there's a ton of other plugins that I like to use and I use regularly, these ones are the ones that get used pretty much all the time because they do something in particular that I don't really have any other plugins that can do it exactly the same way. And that's why they're so essential to me. If you have some essential plugins that you think that I need to check out, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear which plugins you use all the time that you think are awesome. So I'll put links to all of these plugins in the description below if you want to check them out. This is not affiliated in any way, but if you do want to support this channel, definitely check out my Trigger 2 sample pack, because that's a great way of showing you support and get some sick drum samples at the same time. And if you want to hear some examples and learn a little bit more about my Trigger 2 sample pack, then check out this next video coming up.